Thank you for coming here and talking with us today, George.
My pleasure.
I'm going to ask you to take me back, if you will, to the first time you remember the topic of a brass band event being discussed. Who was there, what was happening at the time, and what brought it on?
Well, that's pretty simple. The very first time it was ever talked about was when Vince DiMartino and I took a road trip up to Cincinnati to go to an antique postcard show. And on the way back, driving back to Danville, we just were brainstorming and sort of envisioned a festival where all sorts of bands would come, and maybe something that would capture the spirit of an old-time concert in the park with a band. And it wasn't too long after that at a meeting of Chamber of Commerce Committee, they had decided to no longer produce the old Constitution Square Festival, and had a lot of people there who knew how to put on a festival. So they said, well, gosh, I wish we could come up with some kind of an idea that's different than other places have. So I thought for a minute, is this this idea too crazy to suggest or what? But I said, well, I have an idea, and threw that out, and it's gone from there.
What did you see as the major stumbling blocks when it
Money.
first got started?
There's no question about it. That's the major stumbling block then. It's the major stumbling block now, I'm sure, because it's a free festival. Nobody pays an admission charge to get in, and so you have to depend on donations in one way or another, either from individuals who come and throw a couple of bucks into the basket, or local community sponsors who contribute. And it really the community sponsorship, because the way it evolved, has been spread out all over the community. There's no one sponsor that contributes to pay for everything. And you certainly see that with many festivals. You'll see such and such corporation festival, but here, because it's so spread out through all over the community, I think that's really wonderful, because it gives the entire community a sense of ownership of the festival, and it's been a great way to go.
Who do you see as the later joiners that they weren't maybe founding idea makers here, but they became the movers and the shakers?
Well, certainly the one who really fits that description is Ron Holtz, because Ron has been involved from the very beginning, because of his wonderful connections with the British brass band tradition and the Salvation Army brass band tradition. And so Ron was always helping get that kind of brass band. And then when I decided to let somebody else take over, Ron was ready to go, and he's done a wonderful job.
Terrific.
Ron, am I telling that right?
What are some of the biggest advances that you have seen in the festival since that first year?
Oh my.
The ones that are nearest and dearest to your heart.
Well, I think the advances really have been technical advances. The very first year, for example, the staging was simply a black platform with no covering over it or anything, and it was hot, and it was just very simple. So if you look now, it's a very professionally organized staging, sound system, and I would say that's probably the greatest area of improvement. The bands have always been good, and they continue to be good. And
what's the funniest thing that you ever had to personally handle during one of the events?
The funniest thing that ever happened was when a local banker named Tom Poland decided he wanted to learn to play the tuba. And so his wife bought him a tuba. But Tom never really took any lessons on the tuba, so he couldn't play it a lick. And this one particular year, we were featuring the tuba in one way or another. So we had arranged for everybody in the festival, all the tuba players from all the bands would come and line up in front of the Advocate Brass Band, and we played a very well-known march called Them Basses. And Tom Poland slipped in with that group, and he's standing right in the middle of the stage in front of about 20,000 people. And he happened to be standing right next to Sam Palafian, who's one of the greatest tuba players in the world. And Tom wasn't content to just stand up there with the rest of them. He was sort of singing wildly into his tuba. And I mean, I heard him because I was conducting the band. He was right behind me, and a few seconds into the march, Sam looked over at him. He said, "You can't play that thing a lick, can you?" Tom said, "Nope, I can't," and just stuck it back up and started singing again. And that's the funniest thing that ever happened to me at the festival.
What's the most difficult thing that you ever had to handle related to the festival? Challenging or difficult?
Yeah. You know, I don't have memories of anything being difficult. I loved the festival, and I'm sure there were challenging things, certainly, but they're just things that you deal with. And you don't really hang on to the difficult things or the bad things. You remember the good things and what a wonderful thing it is. And you know, to me, it's kind of the whole thing's kind of summed up. If you go down to the parade or out to the concerts, you start looking around, invariably there's going to be some little children, and they're just going to be dancing to the music, or they're going to be conducting the band, you know. And when you see that, the looks on their faces and what joy it's bringing to them, I mean, it just makes it all worthwhile.
What single moment will stand out in your heart as the best moment at a brass band festival?
That's also sort of an impossible question. Gosh, there's so many moments. You know, those moments like that are like your children. Which one of your children do you love the most? You know, you love all of them, and there's so many wonderful moments. And
give me a couple examples.
Well, you know, I think, for example, I guess I can think of 2 or 3 things maybe to mention. You know, this little town band in Germany, from Herforth, Germany, we formed something of a connection with that band, and they came here to the festival 2 times. And the Advocate Brass Band went to their little town in Germany 2 times. And it's just a tiny little village. Can't be more than a couple of thousand people live there. But yeah, this band is really the soul of that community. And people who have been connected with the band for decades. And, you know, honestly, it's not a great band at all. It's probably one of the, in terms of absolute ability to perform music, it's certainly not one of the best bands we ever had, but that personal relationship that developed between people there and people here, that really went on for years with a lot of these people. That was a wonderful thing. It really was. And of course, one year they came and they stayed in the dormitory, and quite a few young people in the band, and they wanted to play soccer, and I got out there and played soccer with them. And I tell you, that's the only time in my life I ever did anything like that. But I mean, that was great. I think about then some of the really top level band people that have come here. I'm thinking in particular about Frederick Fennell, came one year, and one year Donald Hunsberger came. I mean, these are the 2 names who were just, you know, the giants of band conducting. And to think about those fellows coming here and being part of this whole thing, where they're mixing with community band people and, you know, people from other countries. I mean, that's pretty special, really.
Okay. What would you like to tell me about the festival that I haven't asked, that you think is important that people know going this year and going forward?
Yeah. Well, I think what's just important is that hopefully this festival will continue for many years, because people really love it. In certain ways, the festival has a different personality perhaps now than it did when I was really involved in producing it. I think it has become more widespread through the community, and whereas I may have been more focused on just doing specific things with the bands and the groups. You know, I think having more community involvement in it, people bring a different focus to it, and now have music in a lot of different locations, different settings. I noticed in the paper this time that one of the groups is going to Arnold Towers to play music for the folks who live there, and so I just hope that I mean, you know, even this year, you know, Ron Holtz found this Balkans brass band, which I was totally fascinated with hearing them play. And you think, okay, it's been 25 years, we brought every kind of brass band there is, and this was a totally different kind of brass band. You know, I always had the very broadest view of what a brass band was. And I remember one year I brought a mandolin orchestra to be part of the festival. And I jokingly said, well, I think one of their strings is made out of brass. I'm not sure. But there was really a different kind of connection, because actually in the late 1800s, mandolin orchestras were, you could find them all over the country. And they were playing the same marches that bands were playing. So it was another manifestation of the way that bands and band music was part of the fabric of American life. But so hopefully as the festival goes on, we'll continue to explore different kinds of music. And just like this Balkans band, there was a movie showing how these bands in Serbia and Romania and these really pretty far away places, you know, these bands playing, but the people, you could see the people in these crowd scenes were just totally absorbed by this music, and it's just really part of their lives. And that to me is really wonderful, to explore all of the new kinds of things and get this music out and into the lives of people.
Very good. Thank you, George.